bit louder. Alright everybody, my name's John. I'm your host. My brothers and I are the present owners of this place, and most of you guys are here because your relatives were owners of the place as well. Pete Rubino and I and the sisters have become pretty close. And we thought it might be really nice to bring Mario into the picture. Mario's the elder here.
My father, he was a chef, and a chef of great experience. He owned restaurants in the city. He liked to make people happy. He liked you to show your happiness to what he was doing. He was very proud to have himself recognised as a good fellow. The restaurant here was always well patronised. It had a recurrent group that used to come every day for their meals here, mostly business people, and my mother was on the desk to be paid when they go out and to keep a record. We used to serve table wine, and we had a cellar of mainly claret wine and one or two others, and according to the demand we used to bottle, fill bottles to put on the table to anticipate what people were going to drink. Claret, of course, was one of the main ones, red wine, and I used to enjoy taking the top off the big casks and to get the claret in flow into the tube to put it into the smaller things. I would put it in my mouth and breathe and get a dash of it on the way. The other thing he liked doing was playing cards, and so some of the patients, gambling.
Back in the 30s, where we are today, they opened the door to the Continental Cafe. Family all worked here, so the family did say. Down in the cellar, under this floor, the wine was all stocked and ready to pour. Red and white and homemade grappa, the customers all left certainly much happier. A jukebox was here, Uncle Mario did say. It played the current hit songs of the day. Not sure of the name, but Mario did sing Titty Tomba, A Familiar Ring. An American soda fountain, where the counter is, served milkshakes, ices and lots of fizzy fizz. Mum and Dad's engagement was here. 10th of March 1939 was the year, when Jen was a bub a long time ago. Under the counter in bassinet she'd go. This is the best bit and quite quirky. A telephone call to Johnny Yodachi. We started with ancestry to discover a history, to continue traditions from the 30s and beyond. Who would have thunk that today, 70 years later, we're here breaking bread and enjoying our pasta. A vino or two is a given. That is the Italian way of living. Salute, la dolce vita, and from that famous Italian friend of the mafiosa, we do it our way.
Well, I started in about 2013 on Ancestry and My Heritage to see if I could, find out the history. And I looked up the ships list, which you can find out what ship they came on. And on the manifest, they've got their name and where they come from. My grandfather had $10 on him when he landed in Vancouver to start off with, and he made homemade cigars in Vancouver, and then he went to New York and stayed with his cousin in Little Italy, and then he went back to Italy, and he went back to New York the second time and went back, and then he came to Australia. In his backyard he had this big purple grapevine, and he used to make his own wine in the garage. His friends used to come and, my grandmother used to have little fits, thinking, they're all going to get raided, by the police and everything.
I'll introduce you to the family. This is Piero, my cousin, Anna, my sister, Tony, my older brother, Pietro, aka Colonel, my other older brother. What happened, Adrian was working on the floor that day, and I noticed it was a busy day, and I noticed him at the gate talking to these three older women. He goes, these are the old owners. I was like besotted. I thought, wow, I said, oh, well, what do you mean? They go, we had it in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. I said, wow, congratulations, welcome. So they came back in and we all sat around, we took photos, and we bonded like a house on fire. And we learnt that they were Italian as well. And they told us the place is called the San Remo, which is obviously a town in Italy. With that was born this idea that we should have a bigger reunion. So I contacted the owners to come in, the guys that sold it to us. So now we've got 3 generations of owners, all Mediterranean, and the place is like, and it's been a continual food establishment. So it's an institution.
I'm Nick Pavlou. My father is Pepe, who was the chef and manager of the Vineyard between 1965 and 1999, so 35 years. This is my mother, Nikki Pavlou, Pepe's wife, and my sister Penny Pavlou, Pepe's daughter. So my grandfather, my mother's father, who originally made the purchase, named the vineyard as the Vineyard because it had that link to the heritage in Greece and the vines and the link to the Southern European history that we brought to Ackland Street, but also that the Southern Europeans brought right through St Kilda and Ackland Street. I mean, if you look back at the time, the famous Ackland Street cake shops, Sherazade, Fairy Stalk was probably the first Chinese restaurant. All of them were products and representations of all the different cultures that were in St Kilda at the time through the 60s and 70s. And those generations are still through St Kilda. There were 2 steakhouses in Melbourne that were quite famous, the Vineyard and Vlados in Richmond. They served different clientele, different ends of the spectrum, but the Vineyard was certainly a cosmopolitan, very European feel, not only about the Vineyard, but the whole of Ackland Street and St Kilda at the time. It was filled with Italians, Greeks, Yugoslavs, Jews. It had everyone through coming in and out of the doors of the Vineyard. So it was a totally different world in a really changing time in Melbourne through the 60s and 70s and 80s.
As I grew older, we had, and getting out into the world, your friends that we used to meet through work or school, you'd find out that their families were always also coming here. And so their generation, so their grandparents and their parents and themselves. So there's always people that have some connection to the Vineyard around in all of our lives.